All right, let's get on to the show itself.
Let's do it.
And we'll do a shot while we're doing this because that's what we do.
All right, moving on. Oh God, we're moving right into
What do we got?
Israel, right?
Israel.
Right
It feels like we covered Israel, but no, we did not cover Israel,
we
did we?
all covered the.
Dabbled.
If you only think of Israel in terms of electoral politics, that's the portion. That's how Biden and the Dems are thinking about it. But we are going to move in. This is what Biden said on. Was it Seth Meyers, which I find horrifying.
Yeah.
I think it's horrifying.
I get criticized for having said a long time ago, you need not be a Jew to be a Zionist. I'm a Zionist. Were there no Israel, there's not a Jew in the world to be safe.
That's news to 8 million Jews who are U.S. citizens. What a crazy thing to say. First of all, not true, right? Second, he's the leader of this country. What is going on?
Well, what's going on is a genocide, but the idea that Israelis are now safer is crazy. The idea that anyone in America that's Jewish is safer is crazy. I mean, I'm not suggesting anyone do anything to them, but the most radical people on earth now have something they can throw in their bag of hate as clear evidence of wrongdoing by a government, but they will obviously conflate that with Jewish people because they're awful people themselves.
And also the leaders of Israel say that all Jews are Zionists. And if you're not a Zionist, you're not a real Jew. So they are complicit in making the people whom they are dominating hate all Jews and not just the ones who are part of a Zionist project, right? Like, yes, you're right. But like, it's all part and parcel of that hate. Anyway, I think this is the second time he said that in the last couple of weeks, that without Israel, Jews wouldn't be safe. I mean, first of all, Jews weren't safe on October 7th, for sure. That's more than, I mean, yes, horrible acts of anti-Semitism happen here, happen across the world. Horrible acts of racism, bigotry happen in lots of places. But to say that you aren't safe if Israel doesn't exist is just insanity.
Yeah. I mean, the reason he comes out and says that is that you need something to justify this. And this is a short little video of what's happened in Gaza.
I mean, yeah, it just keeps getting worse and no one is listening to us, which brings us to, one of the more horrific moments of this past week on American soil, obviously not in Gaza, was the self-immolation of active military, I think Air Force, Aaron Bushnell, who self-immolated in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Okay, so This is him on the left. And this was his last post. Many of us like to ask ourselves, what would I do if I was alive during slavery or the Jim Crow South or apartheid? What would I do if my country was committing genocide? The answer is you're doing it right now.
Yeah, what to say about this? I mean, obviously no one suggests suicide, and the legacy media immediately came out with a lot of suicide stories, a lot of mental illness stories. It's what they do it every time. It's the same thing with the guy who self-immolated over the climate change to get some attention on it. I mean, these are the ultimate sacrifices people passionate about the causes have made, and nobody's saying go out and do it, but respect that that's what it was for.
Yeah.
And we've got all kinds of stories about why he did it.
Without actually saying why he did it. A man set himself on fire outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, the police said. U.S. airman sets himself on fire outside Israeli embassy. Sets himself on fire. Nothing. Not saying the reason. Not talking about Gaza. Not talking about Israel. Not talking about genocide, even though his last words were free Palestine. There was an article in Time magazine where they basically are saying it's against the rules. Defense Department policy states that service members on active duty should not engage in partisan political activity. So it's against the rules.
He's been a bad military agent.
This is how Mossad dealt with it. Our enemies kill themselves. Thanks for showing up, Mossad. Here's their next one. U.S. Air Force soldier lights himself on fire to protest Israel. What an idiot. Just as to show the juxtaposition. So that is how most of U.S. media, legacy media, covered his self-immolation. When it was a dissident in Russia who self-immolated, I think the last year, this is how it was written about. Russian journalist sets herself on fire and dies, blaming the government. They don't talk about how she is mentally incompetent. They don't say what she did was against the rules. They very clearly set up that she was a critic of the Kremlin and that she blamed them. I ask you to blame the Russian Federation for my death, they quote her as saying from her Facebook. Somehow that was missing on all of those articles by the Washington Post and Time and I don't know. Pat, did you freeze? Oh, you did. You froze.
Apparently I'm frozen. Strike did it.
I do think, should we show this CNN clip? Since there's one good piece, should we give them their props?
Yeah. So this was actually a shock to most of the world that CNN actually gave some honest coverage to this incident. Probably after a lot of backlash, after hours and hours of bullshit about it.
And also, I don't know if this was one of their primetime shows because I don't watch CNN, but I didn't fully recognize.
This clip, I think we can end the discussion on this part of Israel with this clip because it's pretty powerful, I thought.
We're learning new details today about a deadly protest outside the Israeli embassy in Washington. Authorities identified Aaron Bushnell as the person who, on Sunday, set himself on fire. The 25-year-old was an active duty member of the U.S. Air Force. CNN's Gabe Cohen joins us now with the details. And Gabe, this is something that he did in protest.
Yeah, that's correct. And we're learning much more about this 25-year-old active duty airman, Aaron Bushnell, as you mentioned. He's from San Antonio, Texas, and he live streamed his actions on Sunday in broad daylight on the streets of D.C. outside the Israeli embassy. We are not going to show that video. It is extremely graphic and disturbing. I have watched the video. I can tell you at the beginning, at the start of it, you can see Bushnell walking up to the embassy on the street in his military fatigues. He's speaking calmly to the camera. I want to read a portion of what he says. He said, quote, "I will no longer be complicit in genocide. I'm about to engage in an extreme act of protest, but compared to what people have been experiencing in Palestine at the hands of their colonizers, it is not extreme at all. This is what our ruling class has decided will be normal. He then goes on to pour some sort of accelerant, it looks like, on his head out of a water bottle he was carrying. And then he lights himself on fire, Boris. And as the flames engulf him, you can hear him yelling, free Palestine, again and again, until finally he collapses. And that is when officers, you can see them race in, one of them with a fire extinguisher in their hands, trying to put out the flames. But it takes time. And as we have learned, Bushnell died in the hospital at some point later on. And look, it really speaks to the tensions that are continuing to escalate around the war in Gaza, not just across the world, but here in the United States. We saw a similar incident in December when someone self-immolated, lit themselves on fire outside of the Israeli consulate in Atlanta. But this feels different. This is an active duty member of the military burning himself to death on the streets of the nation's capital.
Gabe Cohen, thanks so much for the details. Appreciate it.
Pretty amazing also that reporter also mentioned that this was the second case of self-immolation. Right. The first one, I think the person is still in intensive care. We don't,
right,
and
they
I
survived.
Possibly a woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard, but we didn't hear any, I mean, I heard nothing about it until this happened with Bushnell. So, you know, rare moment of real reporting from CNN. I guess let's give them props when they deserve it.
That's painful, but yeah.
Yeah. And sorry about that. Was a weird, I don't know why the audio wasn't matched up to the video, but that's technology. All right. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, we have a lot we could cover on Israel. I don't know that any of it is going to be more powerful than that. I kind of feel like we should leave it on him today.
I think that's probably right. I just want to say that if we were seeing Hamas parade around all the war crimes that the IDF soldiers are, showing the people they've slaughtered and stolen their homes, their underwear, their shoes. This one guy, I mean, it was so much like Nazis in Germany, showing the shoes that he took, that he said, I'm going to give this to my fiance. Yeah. Sleeping, like pretending to sleep in a baby's crib. It is just so vile. It's so vile.
If there was even one clip of that, it would be on front and center from Israel.
Constantly. I mean, just look at about the rape charges, right? And the amount of media attention given to an ex-IDF soldier, liar propagandist who just regurgitated her previous, she's not even a reporter. The first byline she ever had was, I think, in that October, November piece, or December, the rape, the silent witness, whatever, that was debunked because she relied on people who lied, Zaka, and another woman who so Zaka, almost all of their lies have been debunked, the beheaded babies and all that. Then the woman we showed last week who said, I was just emotional and I believe that there were 67 different specimens of semen in one woman. And also then cites Zaka, just regurgitates all of that for another byline in a different, also, right. That got tons of publicity, but not the UN coming out and saying that they have substantiated evidence of IDF soldiers raping and assaulting Palestinian prisoners.
Right. And I mean, the rape charge, the beheaded baby stuff, the New York Times article that we're discussing here, it's the yellow cake uranium. But the difference is we knew immediately that it was bullshit. I mean, a lot of this was debunked like a week or so after it, and now it's unquestionable that all these accusations lobbed, largely are false and fabricated.
Yep.
And so the difference between the Iraq war is it took a long time to unpack the disinformation. And now we're living in a time when a week later, we know it's bullshit. And the public is looking at our politicians and the media lying to us.
Yep.
And so what do we do with that? Well, now you've got more people angry than ever with no outlet. We're protesting across the entire fucking world and nothing is changing. And that's all falling on Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. And to prop them up and vote for them in the face of this is just unconscionable to me.
Yeah. I mean, and to clearly not, they are signaling with this uncommitted that they're not abandoning him. I mean, that's the whole point of it. Unconscionable. Absolutely.
Right. I mean, on
Yeah.
one hand, look, they're trying to give an off ramp to get some change, like waving out our vote, like we
Right.
could still vote for you if you do something about it. But that's not the effect. If you just look at how the Democratic Party has operated, we're not going to get a change. You need to
they're
force
saying it. They've said it out loud. They're saying, like, listen, yeah, I know it's too bad, but by November, they're going to know it's a binary choice. It's either Trump or Biden, who you're going to vote for. We know they'll come back. I mean, they are saying those words out loud.
Believe them.